Forced property sales. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this domain article, which is discussing forced property sales and how they're unlikely during the Victorian lockdown as the mortgage holiday ends, according to property experts. Now, here's the thing. Well, they could be unlikely because people are desperately trying to sell their property. You can't even have an inspection. You can't even bring someone into a house in a one-on-one controlled environment with distancing and other procedures put in place in Victoria right now. Maybe that's why you're not going to potentially have forced sales. And the banks are going to do whatever they can to avoid this. But then we've been looking at other articles where people are struggling to keep their businesses afloat, even with better economic conditions than Victoria. And they've had to get mortgage holidays on their private residences. And when that comes to an end, they won't be able to make the repayments. We're starting to see investors struggling to pay for their apartments, or cashing out, selling up, giving discounts because they're not renting them. You've got listing rates increasing by 100% in some suburbs in Victoria. You've got international students, non-existent, big part of Victoria. You've got unemployment at a high level. We've got our GDP crashing like it hasn't since the bloody Depression. See this little downward little bumps here? That is the recession we had to have. That's our last recession, everyone. And the experts are telling us that forced sales are unlikely. Oh, and let's not even forget to mention the whole trading while insolvent, terrifying bloody extension until December. We'll have to see. I suspect it's probably because it'll be impossible for people to have a sale, let alone a forced sale. So let's have a look. Victorian homeowners are struggling to pay their mortgages, are unlikely to be forced to sell their properties during the state's strictest lockdown, despite the looming end to banks' blanket repayment holidays, experts say. The banks have extended the original September end date for mortgage holidays to March 31 next year, but with tighter eligibility. Come the end of this month, homeowners who extended or applied for new deferrals need to prove financial hardship. But many workers will not be able to return to their jobs by that point, with non-essential retail, hairdressing, restaurants and gyms closed until October 26th. The ABA Chief Executive Anna Bligh said banks would be assessing deferrals individually, but they would take into account the wider circumstances of the sector of the economy they work in and any geographic impacts such as the continued restrictions and lockdowns in Victoria. So here's the thing. They're saying we won't start seeing these forced sales at the end of this month. I agree. Hopefully people have stashed money aside and will hold on as long as they can. Or maybe they just need to cut their losses. We saw the real depressing case yesterday of a family just struggling, wanting to get out, wanting to sell, and just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it because the real estate industry in Victoria has pretty much been shut down. The RBA's dream of stopping the real estate industry has been achieved. It's been achieved. Banks will be more acutely mindful that there are many of their Victorian customers who may need additional support and need more time to get back on their feet, Ms. Bligh said in a statement to Domain. Even if Melburnians facing hardship wanted to sell their homes now, they could not do so, as the ban on in-person property inspections until October 26 effectively shuts down the property market. 40 Finance Director Will Uncles said, yeah, he's right there. He's right there. But he said there would be few people in that situation, as those financially affected by the lockdown would likely be able to work out an arrangement with their loan deferral repayments until next year. See, this literally is. They're not saying we won't have forced sales. They're saying we're kicking the can down the road until next year. And then it'll be interest only. They'll say, okay, we'll let you go interest only repayments until you sell your property. You'll start seeing taps on the shoulder. And then property will start to fall a little bit. You get 5% and then 10%. Melbourne's predicted to be a 10% fall, everyone. Banks do not want to repossess anyone's homes because of the emotional stress it puts on clients. but also because of the workload and cost in doing so, he said. I've not come across any bank that would force you to act during the lockdown period. I mean, that's a good point. It costs money for the banks to step in. It's probably cheaper for them to give you interest or to let you not pay for a few months, and you're still incurring that cost, and they'll just get it back when you are forced to sell later or when you sell by yourself. Great business they're in, isn't it? Great business. He said rather than a blanket approach to allowing Victorians to have mortgage holidays, it was still preferred that deferrals were considered on a case-by-case basis and that people should carefully consider whether putting off repayments is the right call for them. It's not just a pause. That means you just don't pay anything, he said. You have to eventually make your repayments, and it may mean your interest is higher once your pause term finishes. As of the 31st of July, there were $167 billion worth of home loans deferred across Australia, representing 9% of all mortgages, according to the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority. There were $240 billion worth of total deferred loans, including small business loans. I mean, I see this, and we could have been in that situation. If this happened a few years ago when we were, when I had all the staff, I had the premises, I had the loan for the scanner, the loan for the car, we had a big job coming up, and if we would have just been locked down, it terrifies me, actually. It really terrifies me to even contemplate that. So I could see just the stress these people are going through. I tell you, I'm much happier now. I'm running a much leaner operation. Much leaner operation. Maybe that's going to be the lesson a lot of other people are going to learn out of this, is where they can really tighten up their businesses. July was the first month since loan deferrals began in March, where the number of mortgages and small business loan holidays which expired or extended was more than the number of new deferrals being taken out. $20 billion worth of loans were approved for deferrals in July, while $40 billion worth ended or expired. The financial advisory firm Pro Solution Private Clients Associate Director Jody McCowan said blanket deferrals for Victorian mortgage holders may be the only option, as it was unlikely banks had the time to assess every individual deferral before the end of September, when Melbourne was still in a reasonably harsh stage of lockdown. It will be impossible for them to look at it case by case, she said. One bank I was talking to had 10,000 to look at on his own. Sorry, one banker had 10,000 to look at on his own. How is that even possible? That's insane. She said banks may need to have a self-certification system where customers would fill out applications for deferral extensions online. A lot of people will still have to have deferrals, she said, especially in Victoria. It's worse than it was 6 months ago. That's it. It's not getting better. How's there even any discussion of a recovery? We haven't even felt the impact of this recession yet. I don't know what I'm seeing in some of these other things. Foster Ramsey Finance Director Chris Foster Ramsey said it was likely Victorian homeowners would have more airtime with the banks to extend or take out mortgage holidays than those in states such as WA. They should have a lot more weight to defer their mortgages than those in more open states, he said. He said, while there was more scrutiny from banks on mortgage holiday applications, it was unlikely banks would force people to sell their homes, particularly while Victoria was still in lockdown. Well, you can't sell your home in Victoria right now. It's impossible. So what does that mean? Cans kicked down the road. We'll see it manifest next year. I'm thinking it'll tax time next year. That'll really start to hit. What's the government going to do? What are they going to pull out of their cards to try and prop up property? We saw in another video, migration, foreign investment. Let's just keep doing what Australia's been doing for the last 30 years, and now we've gotten in this mess where housing is so unaffordable. All our wealth of our civilization, 57% of it has been put into housing. And most of the houses are built like cheap pieces of rubbish. No bank is going to want to make that call. They're going to want to privately get a resolution and get them back to paying their loan. Some people may have the memory of the recession of the early 1990s, Mr. Foster Ramsey said, making them concerned about banks forcing them to put their homes on the market. The banks were a bit more brash, and if you couldn't pay, you needed to sell. I don't see that being an issue this time, he said. Commonwealth Bank is in the process of contacting 250,000 customers about their loan deferrals. That's a big number. Chief Executive Matt Comyn told the House of Representatives Economic Committee on September 4th. We would expect and hope that the majority of customers will be able to recommence their repayments, but clearly not everyone will be able to do so. There's a range of different options that we will work with with our customers on a case-by-case basis to establish what is right for them. He said the banks had seen an increase in requests for deferrals at the start of Victoria's second lockdown, but that nationally the number of requests had declined. ANZ Chief Executive Shane Elliott told the same committee the bank had only seen a slight increase in deferral requests since the beginning of the second Victorian lockdown. But what's also going to happen is there's going to be economic ramifications for JobKeeper starting to get pulled back and for job seeker bonus being reduced. And that will flow through to other parts of the economy, and you'll see more people that are doing it okay probably won't be. What do you think, everyone? Do you think we'll start to see forced sales in Victoria, or is it really just kicking the can? As always, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.